Esta. Okay, thank you, Dean. Now we're going to move over to the Zoom. I know we might be having some problems when we go into Zoom. You can't really see anything on channel 6. That's what a friend of mine was telling me that. But we have now Dr. David. Now, I know you don't like me to call you doctor, but you are Lumbosky, who is coming in to us via Zoom from the Philippines, all the way from the Philippines. And I just want to give you a little background on Mr. Lumbosky, who I met just about 2-3 years ago. And he's just an amazing person. He arrived on Guam in 1974. So he's been here for a long time. He was at the age of 23 when he arrived on Guam. I hope that's not giving away your age, but he graduated from the University of Guam in 1976 with a master's in education and counseling, and graduated from Boston University, graduated from the University of San Diego with a doctorate in education, and worked on many social services agencies on Guam, including Sanctuary, CPS, Gumamami, Goodwill, the VA, and Guam Department of Education as a school psychologist. So he's been on Guam contributing his knowledge, his insight, and helping the people of Guam for many, many years. And I'd like to welcome you. How's the weather in the Philippines?
Hopefully you can hear me. The weather is pretty good.
I can hear you.
It's a little cool. Okay, it's a little cooler than Guam. I'm doing some medical stuff here, and I'm here for my son's anniversary, 3-year anniversary, Asher's 3-year anniversary also, and such.
You know, we're all very familiar with the case that happened with Asher, you know, our angel from Guam who was taken too soon. And
thank you.
You know, he will always be in our hearts, and I think, you know, he is what is pushed me to introduce, be a part of the change of the medical malpractice mandatory arbitration that's on Guam, only Guam, not in the CNMI, not in any other state where we have this mandatory arbitration when you have a legitimate claim against a doctor who is what you say malpractice, has harmed you, or even the death of someone. And we have to go through these barrels just to get justice, you know, and it's ridiculous. My heart just fell when I heard the story about Asher and then did my research on it. And that's why I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, and that's fighting. You know, people say I've always been that warrior type of person. Well, when it comes to our children and our families here on Guam, they deserve the best health care. They deserve every opportunity when it comes to getting assistance with any kind of medical need on this island, from the foot to the head to, you know, physical therapy. We deserve what they're getting in the mainland. And I believe that doctors have that same capability. But unfortunately, with medical malpractice mandatory arbitration, there is an issue with that, because it just seems that there are a lot of individuals who cannot even afford to sue a doctor or even take a person to court to find out if they did have medical malpractice in you know, servicing any patient. So I'm sorry to get straight into that, Dr. Lumbosky. And again, I'm sorry calling you Dr. Lumbosky. Can I call you David? Is okay? Just David?
No. Please call me David.
Okay,
Thank
David.
You.
Sorry. I get very passionate when we talk about this medical malpractice. We've been trying to fight this for years, and I'm just, and I want to thank you again for bringing this to my attention, that the people of Guam are not getting that same kind of, you know, treatment as anybody else, and even in CNMI, they don't even have this in CNMI. So let's get on to. We'll talk a little bit more on that, but right now I'd like to talk to you about what there's a case that was filed, and against the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and the Guam Board of Allied Health. What prompted you to file this case?
Yeah, they refer to that. This is all new language to me. A writ of mandamus, and basically through the frustration. and I should say also that, first of all, thank you for mentioning Asher. But this is not about Asher. Asher maybe got me into this, but this is not about Asher. This is about at least 100 different people I've spoken to all over the island. People have written to me, have given testimony, have sent me messages and said that they can't speak out and so forth. And the arbitration makes it so that you are not, the arbitration law, mandatory arbitration law makes it so the average person has no rights when it comes to medical justice to bring to hold somebody liable. But moving away from that, as you said, because of that, the only option that we have on Guam really is, if we feel a doctor is substandard in their medical care, is to go to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and the Guam Board of Allied Health and the Guam Board of Nursing and so forth and so on. But based on my own experiences and maybe about 30 other people I've spoken to and all the cases I've written, some of the unbelievable things, we decided that the Guam Board of Medical Examiners has made, and the LA Board, have major conflicts of interest. First of all, the most simple thing is they're violating the law. For the last 10 years, there's been a law in the book that requires them to provide medical doctors' profiles. It's been on the book. You should be able to write to them. By the way, they're starting to do it now, but you should be able to, because of this lawsuit, but you should be able to write to them and say, what's the story on this doctor? What is his profile? Does he have any charges against him, medical negligence or whatever? You were not able to get that. That law was written and sponsored by then Senator Tina Mooney Barnes and other people, but it was never enforced. And no one was even aware of this until we had the hearings in 2019 about the arbitration information hearings. So that law has never been enforced. And on top of that, there's another law. 4 years ago, the medical board, required by law, is supposed to have a website that you can go on the website, you can click on a doctor's name and get their background information. I forget the name of the law, but Guam only really has 2 consumer laws to protect medical consumers, and that's one. So you go on and say, okay, I'm going to see this pediatrician. And you can click on his name and say, oh, wait a minute, this pediatrician has a history of this or that, negligence, and you can go someplace else. That hasn't been done either. And there's many excuses that they have, but they haven't been done. So my personal experience was, I went to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and after Asher had passed away, and I filed a complaint with regarding Seventh-day Adventist Clinic and Dr. Miyagi and some other people. Just one complaint at that time. And the Guam Board of and this time, I have total trust in the boards and in the system, because I didn't know any better. So we filed this complaint way back when, and we went through this whole process. And during the process, I asked the board many times, and I was with Asher when he went through the Seventh-day Adventist Clinic. I was an observer. I was a witness. I said, can you interview me so I can tell you what happened while I'm at the board? At the clinic. They refused. I sent them several emails. Can you interview me? Can you interview me? I guess they didn't think it was important enough to interview the father of a child that passed away, and the father's claiming subpar medical care. So they refused to do it by default. On top of that, then they finished their investigation. And let me be clear, I'm not saying an investigation needs to go in my favor or anyone's favor, but it needs to have a process. So they finished the investigation, and then I asked them, I said, can I see the investigation? Can I see the results? They refused to release the results to us. Imagine this. Wow. Yeah. Imagine this. They have gone in front of the oversight committee a couple of years ago with and said, "Oh, we include everybody." It's not true. They don't. They refuse to release the investigation, and instead of releasing it to us, they released the results of my son's death investigation to the Guam Pacific the
media, yeah, but not to you. But not to you.
Not to us. We read about what happened to my son in the newspaper.
Oh my gosh!
Do you know how?
That's traumatic. Yes.
You know I can't even. It's like someone killed me a second time. It was like death over again.
Yeah.
And at that time, I said, the heck with this. This is not good. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Again, I'm not asking that they side with me. I'm just asking that it's a fair system. So I approached them and I said, "What's going on with this?" And they were quick to point out, "I'm sorry, you cannot appeal our process. You can't appeal at all. That's our rule. Have a nice day."
That doesn't sound right and good.
Yeah, pretty much that's what they said. So at that point in time, I decided I don't trust these people, and then I start looking into it. The individual that does the investigation, the chairperson, and I don't really want to get into people's names, but the chairperson of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners is Dr. Berg. Dr. Berg had a conflict of interest. Dr. Berg makes money off all the clinics on the islands. He has his machines in them. He gets referrals from them. So he's the person in charge of that. That means the person in charge of the investigation has a conflict of interest. He's making money off the clinic. Not only that same individual has said publicly at the legislature more than once, in your office and others' office, that people with medical negligence issues should be exempt. We should not get rid of arbitration. We should keep arbitration, which makes it almost impossible for medical accountability. So in other words, he feels that doctors shouldn't be accountable by all the things that he said. And then he goes into the Guam Board of Medical Examiners and puts on a hat where he has to make doctors accountable. That's the reason that's the reason that there's been more than 30 cases in front of that board. I think it's around 35 now, and none of them have ever been decided in favor of a consumer complaint. None, zero, none. And I've spoken to many. And a good example of this is the Dr. Paciento case that's going on right now. The Guam, and I have permission to speak about this from one of the victims. The Guam Board of Medical Examiners calls the victim, according to her, and asks them to let the doctor off the hook so they can license him. And this is also written in another media source, and it's been going on for years. They are not pro-patient. They are pro-doctor. So the purpose of the writ, finally, enough's enough. The purpose of the writ, is to make them develop formal procedures for discipline and for complaints to be handled. In other words, the way it is now, it appears to be they kind of wing it.
Rules and regulations. Rules and regulations, which they have not been able to do. And I really want to thank you for filing that case, because it does take some, funding to do so, and hire an attorney and stuff. It does take some money to do this. And a lot of people want to file these cases, but they just don't have the funding. But because I really think that if you did not file this, David, that the Board of Medical Examiners probably wouldn't even do the rules and regulations. But because there is this suit hanging over their head, and now they have to be accounted for, they have to do these rules and regulations. But why does it take something like this for them to do it? This law was passed years ago, many years ago. I think it was in the 31st Guam legislature. It's the one that you're talking about, 31st to 32nd. To put the website on there. The rules and regs always have to be reviewed and put together. But it just... Man, I want to thank you, for many people who've come in, situations like this where they just felt they didn't have a voice. They couldn't say anything, or they didn't have the funding, to kind of force these individuals to do, what's right by the people and be transparent. Now, don't get me wrong. Not all doctors on this island are bad doctors at all. None of them are. They're all very, very good. I have a very good doctor. Dr. Robinson. He's a good guy. But I want you to know that if these doctors, if they're good doctors, then what do they have to worry about?
I think when it comes to the writ, first of all, let me go back to your statement.
Sure.
Guam has great doctors. Even the SDA clinic that I'm at odds with, they have good doctors there. I had the same dentist at SDA for 25 years. I was a patient of SDA for 30 years. But when, so in Guam has great doctors. I'm telling you, my doctors, who I won't say their names, so somebody doesn't call them up and say, get rid of that guy. But really, you know what I'm talking about. My doctors are great. Guam has great doctors. This is not about great doctors. This is about a process when something goes wrong to hold people accountable. And and if you can't do it because of the Arbitration Act, and you can't do it with the boards because of major conflicts of interest and doctors protecting doctors at the boards, well, where can you do it? And by the way, let me just say one thing on the side.
Sure. Guam
is not the only board being sued. Now, through my research, California is the board being sued for similar reasons. And in California, they're saying we should add more consumers on the board
than doctors. Yes, right. I read that same article. That makes total sense because, like you said earlier, you have doctors prosecuting doctors, and these guys work together. Sometimes, a doctor will have to send a patient to another facility for any kind of testing that they don't have in their facility, and then when something goes down and you have to testify on behalf of this other doctor, then, it becomes very difficult. It's like their own close-knit, group. And that I think Guam needs that same thing. We need to put more constituents, the community, on these boards than doctors. Having a couple would be great, but I think to that point, it makes total sense. So I'm going to closely monitor that one too in the mainland. So please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, that's absolutely right. And I'm glad you said Guam has great doctors, because there's always a misconception that you, or anyone else who wants policy change is saying Guam has bad doctors. No, but let me jump around here. This is part of the issue, though, is that not all doctors on Guam are good and have histories.
Right.
And what happens is when these doctors have histories of medical negligence or whatever, it's sort of covered up. Number one, it's covered up by the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. In my opinion, I have to say in my opinion, because that's how I feel, and that's what a lot of people feel. Guam Board of Medical Examiners has had more than 30 cases go in front of them with consumers complaining since Nathaniel Berg has been the chairperson.
And how many years has he been a chair? Or how many years has he been sitting on the board?
I think he's in his second appointing, so we're talking about maybe
8 years.
I'm not really exactly.
I think it was about a little bit over 4 years. But David, I want you to hold on. Don't go away, because we got to slip away for traffic here with Alex. I know he let me get away with it last time on the last interview I was doing. I went over time, but I can't let him slip. Stay there where you are. We'll be right back with David Lebowski talking about the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. And here's your traffic with Alex.
Good afternoon, Senator. Good afternoon, Guam. Alex riding along with you on behalf of Dan Bradley on the go for News Talk K57. We are cruising southbound on Route 10, heading into the metropolis of Manila right now.
With David Lebowski about the Board of Medical Examiners. We left off in our conversation with, you were mentioning, David, there are 30 cases that have been brought to the Board of Medical Examiners, and that's where you left off. So I'd like you to continue from there. There have been 30 cases in the last, I would think, 4 or 5 years?
I'm not exactly sure of the time, but it's ever since Dr. Berg has been the chairperson. And actually, I think there's more than 30. It might be up around 35 now, and I'm not exactly sure. And none of those cases have been decided for a consumer. Now, I'm not saying that the consumer or the patient was correct and they should be decided, but when you have a batting average of 1,000 against consumers, you got to start to ask after a while, what's going on here? Right. And remember, I'm coming from my own frame of reference, where I was going to sit idly by and watch what they did with my case regarding my son, because in that case, there definitely was biases. And again, I'm not pushing that the outcome was the investigation was wrong, but I do think they have major conflicts of interest. You cannot have the chairperson of a board, and this is true anywhere, with even the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. You have the person who's investigating, and as a chairperson, who's dependent on doctors from every clinic on the island to make referrals to his business. On top of that, he has imaging machines or whatever in some of the clinics, and that's the person who at the same time says, I don't believe in medical arbitration. I mean, I don't believe we should get rid of medical arbitration. The major conflicts of interest. That person should not be in charge. And so when you look at the batting average of 1,000 and see the conflicts of interest, and I'm not saying anything bad about Dr. Burt. We could call him Dr. X if you want. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying this is the reality. This is not
what's happening today. This is the issues that we're going through today.
These are real issues. This is not real made up by me. I'm not just sitting here. You know, we've had public hearings about this several times. Information
late into the evening. Yep.
That's right. This stuff is not made up. So, and if I'm wrong, then they should step forward and say, no, Mr. Lebowski is wrong. We had 35 cases and 2 were decided, or whatever. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of them. But when you have a board who's supposed to be protecting the public per their website, calling patients, who are alleged victims of sexual misconduct, and then the board is calling them and saying, is it okay with you that we let the doctor get licensed again? That's re-victimizing these patients. And on top of it, they're saying, we need your psychiatric medical records and go for a psychiatric evaluation. Someone who claims, alleges that something happened to them needs to be investigated, not re-victimized. And that's what, and you can talk to them. You can get in touch with all the other people who have board experience, Guam Board Medical Examiners. And on top of that, some of the board members, like at Allied Board, they've been there for 20 years. Imagine this, 20 years. And they're only supposed to be there, what's the law now? 2 sessions, 6 years max, am I correct? A reappointment as a board member, they've been there for 20 years. And then when you look back, like the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners, you look back and you see the last time they made any significant changes in their laws and rules and regulations was 20 years ago. It's
we just had sorry to interrupt you on that, but I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to the public hearing we had, the oversight with regarding to all these boards. Speaker Therese Terlahi had a hearing regarding rules and regulations for every board. There was like 7 different boards, from dental to cosmetology to what are some of the other ones? If I'm optometry, there's social worker, even EMTs. They have all these boards, and it was ironic that most of them, almost 90% of them, did not have their rules and regulations in place that have been reviewed and adopted and gone through the AAA process, and it's just so discouraging. But the good part is that at least, Speaker Terlahi is actually having these hearings and bringing it forward to show, look, for everyone to see. You have not done your rules and regulations. You need to get onto it. Now, there was only one attorney that they used from the Attorney General's office. Only one, with all those, I think it's 7 boards, different boards.
Yeah.
And I asked the question, do you need some help to help these boards? Because many times they're doing this in the blind. They don't really know the law. They don't know what they can and cannot do. And you have this one individual who is not always available, who works at the Attorney General's office. I think that what really needs to happen is we need to actually move away from the Attorney General's office and get a private attorney for them. Keep the government out of it, because a lot of times there is conflict of interest, with the government side, and have at least 2 attorneys working on these cases. A private one, I think, would be much better on it. But Matt, so I just wanted to bring that up. You're right. Those. Go ahead.
Attorney, you're talking about Attorney Rob Weinberg.
Weinberg,
right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, let me give you. Let me say something. Attorney Weinberg, in my opinion, has been wanting to make these changes way back when. I know people that are sitting on the various boards, and I think he's always wanted to make changes. But the board members, especially the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, don't want too much accountability. Again, in my so right, changes right, and rules and regulations mean accountability. It was interesting because I think it was the Guam Board of Nurse Examiners meeting a couple of days ago. Attorney Weinberg referred to some of the other boards that he had contact with. I forget which ones that he mentioned, but he referred to them as being provincial in their thinking. That was the word that he used. Wow. And he said a lot of the other boards don't feel that because there's funding involved, and as you know, and so forth. He seemed frustrated. He said, I think it was a nursing board meeting. He said he called them provincial in their attitude, and he said he feels, it sounds like he feels frustrated that they don't see these issues as their issues. They don't see somebody coming in and complaining the way I did about the way the board processes or whatever. And so, and he expressed that frustration. And to be honest with you, that same frustration I think he's had for a long time. And that provincial word he used, I think, can describe boards better that don't want to make change so they can keep their power or whatever. And
yeah, you're right. No, I felt the same way when I asked him some questions about the needing help, with what he's doing with these boards, and I definitely his eyes lit up like, yes, please, I need some help here. But I don't know if it's okay to do this. To ask you the question about something recent with the board nurses.
Yeah, I can answer that question.
Okay,
actually,
this is recently it's something that recently happened. It was a meeting with the Board of Nurses, and this complaint actually came up, and I thought it was just unbelievable. You want to talk on this, because this is quite disturbing. Yeah. And by the way, this was done through the open transparency, through when they had the meeting. Right. It was on Zoom, right, so the public could be there. They're allowed to sit into this and listen to this. So I think it's okay. So
I was
David,
there. I was
right. I wasn't there, so I'd like you to tell us what had happened from the beginning, okay? Because this is very interesting.
Actually, I should say I wasn't at the meeting, but I was listening to
on
the meeting
Zoom,
live.
Right?
Yeah, on Zoom. To be honest with you, I was amazed when I heard this, because I'm thinking to myself, do they know they're being recorded?
Yes.
Because it's unbelievable.
Okay. So tell the story how this went, because I don't want to go out of the time for this one.
Yeah, this was the Guam Board of Nurse Examiners meeting. This is, I don't know, this past a few days ago. I forget the exact date. And during the meeting, I was getting ready to get off, but I always listen to all the board complaints, I have complaints at the board also, but I'm listening to how they're handling the other patients. I'm interested in that very much. And then they brought up the story of how a nurse or nurses had been suspended at Guam Regional Medical City. And the reason they were suspended was for altering medical records from a surgical procedure. Evidently, from what they said, and this is all on. I have a video of this also. This is all online. The doctor had asked the nurses for they were doing a catheter procedure, which I think it means they're installing a stent for a heart patient.
Right.
And the doctor asked for a certain size needle, and the nurses, they double checked each other, whatever they do in the process, and they gave the doctor the needle.
I think it was a size, the doctor was asking for a size 12 to the nurses, correct?
He was even asking for a 13 or a 12, or whatever he was asking.
I thought it was a 12,
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12, and then they gave him a 13. But so there was an error that was made. But the nurses, from what it said, say that they promised. That's what he said. They kind of double check all that stuff. But so they're saying the doctor made a mistake. But what happened was the doctor, the way it was described, using some of my own terminology, the doctor freaked out and on them and yelled at them and through coercion told them they had to change the medical record.
Yep.
So to reflect the right size or whatever. First of all, You're not allowed to change medical records.
Yeah,
It's a federal. It's a federal law. It's a federal offense. It has to. It's against HIPAA also, and it has to do with the hospital's accreditation. The list goes on and on and on. Also, at the same time, according to what they said, the person who was speaking said, "Oh, the patient didn't have any complications." Then she said, "Oh, well, the patient was in more pain and ended up having a bypass."
Bypass, yes, yes.
A bypass surgery is a big jump from a stent.
Right, but and then they said that it was that person had to have a bypass, but we're still not sure if it was a result because of putting in the wrong catheter. I thought it was a catheter, and if I'm not mistaken, he said that he had ordered a 13, but you have several nurses in there when he called out a 12. And if I remember correctly, the nurses, of course, they check with each other, okay, he said 12, 12, this is it, 12, 12, correct. And then it gets to the doctor, and then doctor inserts it. And then for the doctor to yell at them because he realized it was the wrong size that went into the patient, and to alter the medical records, because I guess it's a diary of when they're doing surgery, they have to write everything down that was placed in there.
Of course, yes.
And realizing that it was a 12 and not a 13, and force these nurses, basically bully these nurses into altering these records. And then coming to find out that later on, these nurses were afraid and they might lose their job. And, you're at a public, hospital, and that I heard that they did alter it. But realizing they brought it to a nurse's supervisor to let them know. So this is an ongoing investigation on what transpired. And David, do you remember who was speaking about this during the meeting? Was that one of the board members?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a board member that's I don't remember her name. Sorry, but the board members are tasked to investigate complaints and issues regarding nurses. By the way, let me just say something else. Guam Board of Nurse Examiners is one of the better boards, in my opinion, on island. Mm-hmm. They really have their stuff together.
Well, that's something coming from you that's really saying something good because you've studied every one of them. These boards.
Yeah, that's why they were not named in the writ with the Allied Board, because I do have complaints from, but that's why they were not named, because in fact, I think they're pro-consumer. They're not going to take any. They're not going to take. But here's the issue now. So the nurses were thrown on the bus, and in fact, the nurses altered the records. They're still guilty of altering the records, so that's a big problem for them. Doesn't matter who yelled at them. They should have said, see you later. I'm not doing what you say, but they did it. But now you have the doctor who's protected by arbitration, who's protected by the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, and he walks away. The question comes now, two questions. Guam Regional Medical Cities states where patients are our partners. That's what they're saying. Did they tell the patient what happened? Legally, they're bound to do it. And if that patient, and number one, that's number one. Number two, what about the Guam Board of Medical Examiners? They know about this. Are they investigating? Are they going to just sit by and wait for somebody to come in and make a complaint? Because this is obviously a major issue that could have killed this patient, and no one would have ever known about it, and people just walk away.
I feel, I just totally feel so bad about these nurses just feeling, but here, I think they finally came forward and did talk to one of the board members, and realizing that what they did, it's wrong. Maybe someone talked to them saying, no, you have to tell the truth. You have to go back. You have to correct this issue. And I'm glad they did. If they did, okay, we don't know the whole story, and I just want listening audience to know we don't know the whole story. This is what we had heard, and I heard a recording, because I got the recording, I heard it, and it's play by play, and it's still under investigation. But for this board member to actually come forward to say that Yeah. Oh, we're going into the CBS. You know, David, I'm going to have to sign off on here. We're going into the CBS News here. I want to thank you so much. This gives an opportunity for Tony to bring you back on. And I'm going to make this arrangements to talk about this some more. I'll be happy to be with him when he does. But thank you so much, David. Keep up the fight. Be the warrior that you are for the people of Guam. Thank you. God bless you. And, and looking forward to you returning home. Okay, so we're going to go to CBS News now. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much.
News Talk K57 is 570 AM KGUM, Hagåtña, Guam.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Dell Small Business.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. We are following breaking news out of Waukesha, Wisconsin, where the city has just confirmed at least 5 people are dead after a Christmas parade crash. But it may not be terrorism. A law enforcement official with knowledge on early findings of this investigation tells CBS News that the driver may have been trying to get away from a knife fight when he hit the crowd. CBS News producer Cassandra Gauthier is there.
This area was crowded. It is near a Riverwalk area in